Well, welcome back to our journey, More Than Words, where we're tracking through this series together as a church and trying to take each day, one day at a time, and figure out how we can experience more of God and live more of the life that He's invited us to live. We're talking this week about dependence and this part of the prayer where Jesus says, "Give us today our daily bread." It's really an invitation to declare our dependence on God. I shared this quote on Sunday from my good friend, Tim Cooper, was a pastor on our staff for many years and still a dear friend of mine. And he said that the dependent version of you is the best version of you, but it's also the version that you will fight the most. It's the best version of you, but it's also the version that you'll fight the most. And so we've been talking about this week and trying to figure out, how do we wrestle with these things that seem so natural to us, to be independent, to be the master of our own domain, to get things done, to stay on top of life. How do we deal with these natural tendencies in us and overcome them and truly live out of our dependence, connection to God? Today I want to share a passage from Jesus in John chapter 15, where I think he really highlights for us how we can live a dependent life, what it looks like to live a dependent life. You may be familiar with these verses, but he shares this analogy of him being the vine and his Father being the gardener. That's what he says in verse 1. He says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener." And then he goes to this word picture of how God will cultivate us. He will prune us to make us more fruitful. And he says that it's to my Father's glory that you produce much fruit. And then he ends up saying this. He says, "Remain in me and I will remain in you." A lot of translations, some of the older translations, use this word abide. "Abide in me and I will abide in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must abide in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If someone remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he's like a branch that's thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. You remain in me and my words remain in you. Ask whatever you wish and it will be given to you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples." Jesus is getting at this idea of connection, continual connection, when he uses this word abide. One of the analogies that I've loved through the years is just the idea of, on a cold winter's morning, waking up, maybe the alarm goes off, it's really early, and it's just really, really cold. It's wintertime, and your bed is really, really warm. That alarm goes off, what do you want to do? You want to hit the snooze, and you want to stay in bed. The reality is you want to abide in your bed in that moment. That's what Jesus is saying our relationship with God and our relationship with him can be like, that he is the vine and that we are the branches. We can live in connection to him. And I would say that to abide is to depend. To abide is to depend. This idea of dependence that we're talking about this week really is getting at the idea of leaning into, abiding in, and staying connected to God. To seeing him as our source in every area of life. So today, how can you abide in Jesus? Today, how can you abide in God? How can you stay connected to and dependent on him? What would help you do that today? There's an incredible quote by Dallas Willard that I've been thinking a lot about the last few months. He was talking to another pastor and The pastor was asking him, hey, can you help me just kind of figure out life? Here's all the things I'm dealing with. What do I need to do? And he says, you need to arrange your days. This is what Dallas Willard said. You need to arrange your days so that you experience deep joy, contentment, and confidence in your everyday walk with God. You must arrange your days so that you experience deep joy, contentment, and confidence in your everyday walk with God. So how can you arrange your days? Today, tomorrow, this week. How can you arrange your days so that you experience deep joy, contentment, and confidence in your everyday life and everyday walk with God? How can you arrange your days so that you abide in Him, feel connected to Him, and live your life from Him? Let's abide today. And I'll see you tomorrow.